All right, guys, check it out. I should really call this video Weird Crawfish Things, because that's really what it is. It's very strange crawfish behaviors, and honestly, I should get in lakes and stuff and put crawdad cages in dirtier water lakes and really try to document behaviors better. But there's so many different type of crawfish that typically the crawfish I'm referring to are clarkies, which is the swamp crawl, which is your black and red crawfish looking ordeals like that guy. If you live on a pond or a shallow lake, dirty water, something with a lot of grass, you probably have clarkies. And what I'm going to talk about is when you have a good shallow bite going, and you're going to hear me throughout all my videos preach, they're either looking up, they're looking forward, or they're looking down. And some days they're standing on their heads. They're straight nose down, tail up, and that's when, like, you have those bites going. You have like a wacky bite or a shallow reaction bite, a fluke bite, something middle of the water column, or a frog bite. And then all of a sudden you get out there and conditions look super conducive to what you were doing before, and you can't get a bite. And I have experienced this so many times at so many different places: the California Delta, my house, Clear Lake, just tons of places. But typically they're places that have those clarkies, those swamp craws. Now, if you live in a deeper, cleaner reservoir, try not to face the sun there, Justin, kind of work back for a second. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, if you live in, by a deeper, cleaner reservoir that doesn't have a lot of grass, you can have, you can have different types of crawfish, and maybe this applies and maybe it doesn't. I don't have as much a time, behind signal crawfish and things like that as I do clarkies. So swamp craws, we'll just stick with that. So here's the deal. I have like super patterned in things so many times to where I'm like, I tell my buddies, like, dude, I'm on a phenomenal frog bite, and this is what I have to end up throwing at the end of the day: a crawfish jig. Always shallow, dingier places. I always have this rule of thumb: once you get past bluegills bedding, once you no longer see bluegills bedding, your jig should always have some red in it. And that's just what those clarkies have. They got that black and red to them. They got some browns to them. Depending if they're molting after a full moon, they can have some other colors to them. But black and red is always a good route to go. And this is not a common thing you see, is a pure black and red jig nowadays. You don't see guys throwing that very often, but it's a very, very good color once the bluegills are off beds all the way through to December. Once again, that's when, if the water gets real muddy, I incorporate black and blue. I do that in the summer sometimes, and sometimes I bring in brown a lot during the early spring, because they're not eating as much vitamin A, to where they lose a lot of that vibrant color, and they're much more of a flatter, dingier color, a black and blue from lack of nutrients, or more of a brown from getting more dead plants, and they're not getting all the nutrients that keeps them that real vibrant black and red. So what I want to tell you here, I was kind of going off on a tangent there, is when you were fishing shallow, whether you're fishing in the middle of the water column, trying to keep the sun out of your guys' face, or you were fishing top water and you had a good bite going in that area, conditions look right, and you think fish should still be eating, pick up a freaking jig, man, and give it a whirl. And the crazy part is, it's like, I've had this happen so many times to where I was just stubborn about it. I just carried on. Like, I know they were eating the frog good here just a few days ago, and it's these crawfish, they do random things where they don't hide, or they come out and they get aggressive, and some random days you'll just see them roaming way more than normal, and those bass pick up on that. Bass will take crawfish over any other thing, and I will argue this till I'm blue in the face with anybody. Crawfish is the #1 forage for bass, no matter where you go. If they can eat crawdads, that's what they're going to be on. How many times have you seen this? You were fishing a topwater bait, you're catching fish on a spook, a buzz bait, you throw them in the live well, and an hour later you go to check on your fish and there's crawdads all in the bottom of the live well. Or if you're on a goby bite, they spit up crawdads. Or if you're throwing a jerk bait and they spit up crawdads. They're always spitting up crawdads because they will take a crawdad when they can get it. So what happens is you have these weird behaviors where they come out and they roam for no reason. You can't see them in dingier water, and that shallow bite just stops. When you're having that weirdness to where you're like, what happened? If you're questioning what happened, or your friend's saying, what happened? Pick up the jig and try it. If I wouldn't have been so stubborn on those other days, guys, I pick up the jig and I'll have like an hour and a half, 2 hours left in the day, and I'll boat 2 big ones. It could have been a phenomenal day. And that's oftentimes you see these local tournaments, guys, where guys go to weigh in and you know the bite was hot. You know, guys were weighing in consistently 20, 25 pounds, and you're like, oh my gosh, they were raking them. And then you look at the tournament results for that weekend, and the top weight was like 11 pounds. I guarantee you there's a really high chance that crawfish came out and threw everything off and nobody knew. So believe it or not, always have that jig ready to try in that funky situation where your shallow bite all of a sudden disappeared. You tried out deeper, it seemed like the fish disappeared. Chances are those puppies were inverted, looking for those crawfish that were doing something weird that day. I'm Nick, the Informative Fisherman, guys. I appreciate the support. Follow me on all the popular social media channels. That's like sushi and social media. That should be my jam, man. Maybe I'll have to start another channel. Thanks for watching.